There's a lot of reasons why you need to buy yourself a Bitcoin. It is a big deal. Bitcoin is digital gold. Bitcoin is international. It is a tech instrument and a store of value. What happens when you introduce an ETF?
Ran, give me your Bitcoin investment thesis. I mean, you're bullish on Bitcoin. Tell me why.
I mean, look, a lot of people are talking about the crypto bear market that we're in now. I don't see a bear market. I got to be honest. And I know people are saying, well, you're delusional. How is it that you don't see a bear market? The way I look at it is the NASDAQ is 40% up since the 1st of January. Bitcoin is 83% up, or depending on, I'm not looking at the exact price, but call it 80% plus up since the beginning of January. Then I look at other metrics. The one metric that I really look at is blockchain usage. So we have a chart of all the blockchains and the amount of usage on all the blockchains combined. And that blockchain usage chart shows that blockchain usage today is at an all-time high. So I know that altcoins haven't been moving at 100x's. Like, I know we're not in that market anymore, but you really can't put your hand on your heart and say that we're in a bear market. And if you do, then I really want to hear your thesis. Like, how do you say that you're in a bear market when all the metrics are showing you that we're in a bull market? If you allow me just to share my screen, I just want to, here we go. So this is the returns by asset class. And you can see that this is as at 30th of June. Bitcoin was up 83%. The NASDAQ was up 39%. The Nikkei is up. The Indian stock exchange, which is the Nifty, is up at an all-time high. We're actually in a raging bull market across all asset classes. The problem is that investors have post-traumatic stress disorder from the previous cycle. And so they're struggling to believe that they're in a bear market. Now, usually they get convinced towards the end of the cycle, and that creates what we call a blow off top or whatever else. But I think that this cycle I'm playing is slightly different.
Mm-hmm. And then just continuing down your Bitcoin investment thesis, like what are the properties, I guess, that you think would cause Bitcoin for there to be demand in the Bitcoin asset?
Well, I mean, look, this week we had Larry Fink, who is the godfather of fund management, of institutions, of Wall Street. He manages the biggest asset manager in the world, BlackRock, which managed $9.5 trillion worth of assets. And, you don't need a thesis when you hear his thesis. And his thesis, he pretty much said, he said, Bitcoin is digital gold. He said, Bitcoin is international. He said, Bitcoin represents the tokenization of every single asset and asset class. He said that the tokenization of assets is the next revolution after ETFs. Now, anybody who's been in finance knows that ETFs revolutionized finance because it gave the masses a way into managed fund portfolios, but at very, very, very low fees. That was a revolution in finance. It was a very similar revolution to the revolution that we're seeing now in crypto. In the old days, money managers used to take huge fees for managing assets. The middlemen used to take huge fees for managing assets into the ETF, and the ETF made it very simple for the man in the street to get into managed funds. And that's exactly what he said. He said Bitcoin is now the next the tokenization of assets, and that is the next part of this cycle, so to speak. So when you hear that coming from someone like Larry Fink, you kind of just have to ride the thesis and ride the asset with him, and I think you'll be fine.
And everybody says that this BlackRock spot ETF is a huge deal. Is it like really that huge of a deal? Could you help us understand like why, like if this gets approved, why this is going to be so big?
So ETFs give investors a simple way to get into asset classes. And if you think about ETFs, the people that sell the ETFs are the wealth advisors. The wealth advisors manage most the capital in the world and in the United States. And if you let me share my screen again, I'll actually show you a few things here. That is like, if you look at the wealth advisors in the world, that is in the States, this is what they specifically manage. So BlackRock manages $9.5 trillion, Vanguard 8.1 trillion, Fidelity 4.3 trillion. And so the list goes on and on. Right now, if you're a wealth advisor and you believe that you want to be in Bitcoin, and the reason why you may want to be in Bitcoin is because Bitcoin's been the best performing asset class. How do you get your investors into Bitcoin? What's your entry point? How do you do it? one way is that you can be a custodian yourself and try and store the private key somewhere or the 12 magic words somewhere, but that's quite negligent. You could open an account on Coinbase, but most big funds aren't regulated to be able to open an account on Coinbase. You could buy shares in Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust, which is not really an ETF, but it's illiquid. It's traded on what they call an over-the-counter market. So what happens when you introduce an ETF is you open up the world to the fund managers who meet with their clients regularly to be able to put Bitcoin into their portfolios. Okay, now what does that do? Well, now you get the average advisor, and whether the advisor is a big pension fund or whether the advisor is an endowment or whether it's just an advisor who plays golf with high net worth individuals, and he says to them, this Bitcoin thing, it's gone up 83% in the first 6 months of the year, and it's still 50% off its all-time high. And, maybe we should just put 2% of our portfolio. And then what happens is it becomes like switching a switch, like all the rest of the investment products in the world. It's not a hard sell. Right now, you imagine that same game of golf with that same fund manager wanting to go into Bitcoin, and he's thinking, if my client tells me to get into Bitcoin, what the hell am I going to do? Like, I'm going to open an account at BitGo, and I don't know how to custody this thing. And, the truth is also, investment managers earn a fee for selling investment products. So it's like, if an investment manager sells a fund, he typically earns a fee. Now, those fees are quite regulated, but going forward, they'll be able to earn a small fee for putting you into the Bitcoin ETF. So they kind of have a small incentive to do that as well. So I think it is a big deal. Now, do I think that it's going to be a case of on the day that the ETF is approved, we all of a sudden get billions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin? No, that's not how it's going to work. We're going to get the ETF, and then they're going to get trained on how to sell it, and then they're going to sell it, and it's going to take time. But over time, I think that'll be the entry point for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% of assets in the United States and in the world to start flowing into Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin is a scarce supply or limited supply asset, the more buying you have specifically of the spot instrument, the more the price goes up. And we know, because we've been around for quite a few bull markets, we know what can happen when that price rise starts. And so, yes, I'm very excited about it.
You keep things real, have a great perspective. That's why I'm really happy to have you on. And I guess the big question is, you talk about the bull market, you talk about the value prop, the ETF. As far as price and timing goes, give us a thoughtful prediction. What are you thinking?
I don't really like to make price predictions because the problem with price predictions is you have like a 1 in a billion chance of getting them right, and the rest is of getting them wrong, and you'll always be ridiculed. And also, you don't know what the macro factors are going to be. I don't know if the war in Russia is going to escalate. I don't know if we're going to get another black swan. What I can tell you is that there's been more adoption and more usage of Bitcoin every single day, and the number of active addresses goes up every single day, and the number of accumulators goes up every single day. And when those metrics are all going up and this asset is in limited supply, which is programmatically limited, then there is no other way but up. Now, are we going to have dips along the way? Sure. If we get another COVID tomorrow, if China invades Taiwan, if Putin fires a nuke, who knows what could happen? But relative to all other assets, I think Bitcoin is in its infancy stage. I think it's found itself a unique niche. What is the unique niche? It is a tech instrument and a store of value. So tech investors value it on adoption and stuff like that. And institutional investors see it as a limited supply alternative to gold. And how much more so when Larry Fink, again, I keep going back to this Larry Fink thing because I think it was a real turning point in Bitcoin. This is the same person who came out in 2017 and said, Bitcoin is an index for money laundering. That's what he said in 2017. In fact, if you, again, just let me share my screen here. I pulled up this article today. Larry Fink calls Bitcoin an index of money laundering. And today he came out and he actually said it's the future of finance. So, I think he's going through the same cycle that we've all gone through in the beginning. I must say, when Bitcoin was first introduced to me, I'm going to be honest, like talking straight here. I said, people are going to play with this magic video game money until one day they all realize that it's backed by nothing. And then they're going to want to get out and there's going to be no buyers, only sellers. And that's how I dismissed my first opportunity to buy Bitcoin. And 2 years later, I landed up buying it. And as Michael Saylor says, everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. So I probably deserved it for brushing it off the first time.
Yeah. Like, do you think 100K Bitcoin, I understand your thoughtful response, but do you think that 100K Bitcoin is likely, or just
Way
like,
higher. No, way higher. Way higher than 100K. If we're in this because we think that the market is only going to 2.5x from where we are today, we shouldn't be in it. Way higher. Like, I'm talking 10 times higher than we are today. But I just can't tell you if it's going to take a year, 2 years, or 5 years. Bitcoin is about network effects. Network effects occur when every new user to a network increase the value of the network exponentially. Now, the powerful thing about network effects is most people don't understand this about network effects. And you only really click when you start thinking about it in terms of your mobile phone. And I don't know about you, but if I land in a new country and I have a choice of whether I can use WhatsApp or some local messenger, truth is I have to go to WhatsApp. And when I do go to WhatsApp, I actually make the network more valuable because I give the network more opportunities to make calls, right? And stuff like that. Now, when a company or a protocol has network effects, only 3 things can stop it. And only 3 things can stop the acceleration of it. So just think about like something that can't be stopped, but you can also not stop its growth. Imagine, like, try get that idea into your head. We are at that point with Bitcoin. Now, when that happens, there are only 3 things that can stop it. It's been studied on mobile phone networks because of anti-competitive laws and stuff like that. And the only 3 things that can stop network effects. So the first thing is government intervention. If the government comes in and says, look, Bitcoin is illegal to own, well, then the network effect is stopped. Second one is technological breakdown for a long enough time for consumers to start switching. So if you think about WhatsApp, if the network goes down and consumers can't use the network anymore, well, then they're going to switch networks and go to another network. And the last thing that can stop network effects is a 10 times better competitor. But a 10 times better competitor has a less than a 1% chance of market penetration. Okay, so even if you have a 10 times better product to Bitcoin, it has a less than a 1% chance of penetration. So I'll give you a perfect example just so you understand how it works. Think about email. So email is written on a certain protocol, right? It's SMTP protocol. There are many better protocols out there today technologically, but because we all use the same protocol, email is on the same protocol. The same as internet. The internet's on TCP/IP. There are probably today many better protocols out there than TCP/IP, but they're not never going to penetrate because we're all using the same internet. And so that's the same thing with Bitcoin. And so to me, like, Bitcoin is kind of unstoppable now. You can't stop it now. It's finished. You just can't stop it unless regulation. We can't rule it out, although most countries have kind of regulated Bitcoin favorably. Technological breakdown probably ain't going to happen because Bitcoin's been battle tested now for years. 12 years later, or 13 years later, it's still building block after block after block. And then is there going to be a better competitor to Bitcoin? Yeah, maybe. It's got a less than 1% chance of penetration. Okay, well, it's a chance that I'm willing to take.
So I guess my final question on Bitcoin is, like, a lot of people want to accumulate 1 Bitcoin. Right now, it's well over 20,000. Seems unlikely. Is a fraction of a Bitcoin any significance, like 0.5 or something?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why you need to buy yourself a Bitcoin, and not a Bitcoin, but some Bitcoin. You need to learn how to use digital blockchain money because it's a new system. It's not the same system. You don't phone a bank. You don't use it via a banking app. There's no regulators. You can't make mistakes. Like, if you send a Bitcoin to the wrong address, well, it's gone. And you need to learn how to use the technology because that is the future of money. Whether it's Bitcoin or Dogecoin or, I don't know, maybe even Pepe, who knows what the next money is going to be. I just think it's going to be Bitcoin, but who knows? I mean, we've got to be open-minded here. You need to learn how to use blockchain money. You need to learn how to use the new monetary system. So that's the first reason why you should accumulate Bitcoin. Second thing is that you don't need to buy it all at once. I mean, I don't buy all my Bitcoin all at once. I didn't get my first Bitcoin all at once. I bought a little bit, and I bought a little bit more, and I bought a little bit more, bought a little bit more. And once you get into that mindset of just buying a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, if you look at the chart, over time, you'll realize it was probably one of the best investments that you've ever made. Now, will it continue to be the best investment? I don't know. But what I do know is that the adoption is growing and that we're in the very early stages of adoption. So to me, it kind of feels like it's probably a good investment to make. I'll say this. I've been here since December 2014. And I'm still, my first Bitcoin was back then, and I think it was around $500 or something. And I'm still accumulating today, even at Bitcoin at $30,000. I just keep accumulating, and I accumulate Bitcoin more aggressively than I accumulate any other crypto asset. So if you want to know my level of conviction around Bitcoin, yes, I play in the altcoins. Yes, I'm a VC investor. And yes, I believe that there are going to be a lot of altcoins that are going to do many magic things. But the one that I accumulate the most is Bitcoin.